After searching for hours, the wreckage of a small plane was discovered in western Kentucky with the bodies of two pilots on board. The Ohio County, Kentucky Sheriff says they had been flying when severe thunderstorms.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Mojo Group. Mike here. Happy New Year once again to all of you. Today, I'm gonna make a video that I don't enjoy making, but it's important that we talk about this. The last couple of years, there's been more accidents linked to social media in recent years. And given that I'm a social media guy and I make aviation content, this speaks to me as well. And some of the practices that I have that's essentially kept me safe whenever I'm flying. Now, if you're new to the channel or you're new to aviation, welcome. My name is Mike. I am an instrument rater pilot and I've been making aviation content for about 9 years. Now, let's get to it. When it comes to social media, right, it's a great thing, in my opinion, for general aviation. So when I started making aviation content back in 2015, I could probably count with my fingers how many content creators there were in this space. Now in 2024, it's countless, right? I feel like a new aviation channel pops up like every other day. And I say it's a great thing because really it's helped the industry grow. There's more interest in flying. There's more interest in choosing a career path as a pilot or A&P mechanic or flight attendants. All those good things are happening because obviously you have individuals like myself or just everyday people who are expressing this passion for this wonderful thing that we all do. But the downside of it is we watch things on social media. Now, I've always adhered to this model, and that is you are safe, or the airplane is as safe as the pilot. We can say that accidents are linked to social media, or we can say the unsafe pilot is linked to the accident. But let me break it down. So if you look back, and I employ all of you to go do your own due diligence, which I guess I'll put a disclaimer here that everything that I talk about in this video don't take them as facts. They're just my biased opinion based on my experience and based on the information that I have. And you can do your own research. So when some of the accidents that comes to mind for me, right, you think of one that happened 3 years ago involving a Cessna 182 where he was flying along and was not paying attention because this pilot was posting Snapchat content. Now, it's very interesting that Snapchat in particular is linked to some of these crashes that we'll discuss and some that you can research yourself. And unfortunately, hit an object and boom, that was a fatal crash. And then one that happened even more recently, which I'll talk about later in the video, also linked to Snapchat. And unfortunately, since I've been doing this, I've actually seen some accidents, fatal accidents of other YouTubers in this space. And that always breaks my heart because again, I feel like we're all vulnerable to this. And in those accidents, it wasn't actually an issue of them not paying attention or posting Snapchat. It was just an issue with the airplane. So again, this beautiful thing that we do, flying, we're all vulnerable to something going wrong or having some type of emergency, which again is why you have good practices and early on, always make sure you build on safe habits. Now, here's some of the do's and don'ts for me, because the key word here is distraction. When you're posting videos or content, as a content creator, guess what? When I'm flying, it's in my head, right? If I want to go for a flight, I'm planning, okay, I need to document this, I need to document this. That's the video. Now, once I get to the airport and or to the plane, certain things happen for me. Okay, this is my truth and this is my experience. Generally speaking, when I'm filming a flight, I already have set mounts around the airplane. And most of my cameras are inside. So if you guys remember in my sling, I had several cameras inside, and then I had one on the wing and one underneath the airplane. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a flight video, or I even have a video here right at the end of this video where I showed you my camera setup. Now, even though the cameras are there, when I'm doing my pre-flight, generally speaking, actually before every flight, right, a day before, I go to the airport and I set up what I want to happen the next day. So I set up the mounts, the cameras, all that good stuff. That way, on the day of the flight, I'm not doing extra work. I'm just focusing on pre-flighting the airplane, getting up and being safe. So on the day of, what I generally do, one, is I take my sweet time doing pre-flight. And guys, no joke, I've had this happen where someone is flying with me and they have something to say about, you know, how long I'm taking with pre-flight. Deal with it, right? Deal with it. I always encourage you to take your time when you're doing your pre-flight. You got time. That's what I tell myself. You have time. There's no need to rush. So especially if you're a content creator, take your time with pre-flight. Make sure your cameras are set up however you want. And speaking of cameras set up, new practices for me is just having most of the premium angles that I want in the interior of the airplane. I generally have one camera facing me, another one behind me for the cockpit, one facing outside, and one facing the cowling. And really, that's all you need for a nice flight video, no matter what size the airplane is. But here's where distraction can come in. So whenever I'm flying, I literally just turn my cameras on before I hop in the plane or before I start my engines, and that is it. I just leave it alone. Now, if you follow some of the videos I made years ago where I had all of these things to say about GoPros, and I was frustrated because my GoPros didn't last as long. If I had a 2-hour flight or 3 hours flight, my GoPros go dead. So what I did was I changed gears. I found cameras that would last 3-4 hours, and that was purposeful. It was because I didn't want to be distracted by any cameras that are on. I just wanted to turn them on, get in the airplane, and fly the airplane. So that's something that I would recommend to any content creator or someone who's, if you're watching this and you're looking to get into making aviation content, that to me, that's the best way around it, is just turn your cameras on and forget about it. Now, once you get flying, again, my practice, I generally don't touch anything or talk to anything or try not to fly the airplane until I get to cruise, depending on the airplane that you're flying. Now, in my plane, there's an autopilot, and I generally use that autopilot once I set in cruise. So from takeoff to climb, I'm flying that airplane. I'm hand flying it, so I don't want any distractions. I may talk to you while I'm flying, but most of the time I'm also talking to ATC. But a lot of activities would happen for me after I set the airplane in cruise and autopilot takes on. Now, once autopilot takes on, I have more time to talk to the audience or whatever, right? So that's another recommendation, is wait till you set your airplane in cruise, or more importantly, wait till Joe, the autopilot, takes over flying the airplane for you, and then you can talk to your audience or whatever the case may be. At least that's been my practice. Now, in some cases where perhaps you want to save the battery life of your cameras or your GoPros, generally speaking, I advise you to have an app either on your tablet or your phone, and you can easily shut things off, again, only when autopilot is flying the airplane in cruise. Outside of that, there's really nothing else as a pilot you should be doing. I generally don't use social media when I'm flying. I honestly don't know how any of these pilots are able to get connection, because once I'm over 3,000, 4,000 feet, my phone is dead. I have no connection whatsoever. So I'm shocked that some pilots are able to post Snapchats or take live videos. I've seen a couple of those. I don't know how they're doing it. I'm sure some have, maybe another subscription to the internet. I don't have one. So generally speaking, my phone is dead when I'm in cruise, and I generally cruise between 8,000 and 10,000 feet. So I really have no use for the phone. I can take a picture, again, once the autopilot is on, but the safest bet is just to leave the devices alone and just focus on flying. The only other thing that I would do, or that I normally do, is just maybe listen to the radio or listen to my SiriusXM podcast, because I have it and it's enjoyable on a long flight. Outside of that, I don't use my devices, nor do I touch the cameras. Again, just switch them on and let them do their jobs. When you touch down, collect your data, collect your equipment, and get out of the airplane. So those are my do's and don'ts. Now let's talk about the crashes themselves. Again, I mentioned one that happened in 2021. The most recent one, which was alarming to say the least, was involving a Piper Cherokee, and this happened September last year, my birthday month. I wanted to make a video about that incident, but I'm sure you guys have been filled up with other creators making a video about it. I honestly couldn't get myself to talk about that situation without getting upset. On two fronts. One, because this was involving a flight instructor. Guys, I also run a flight school. And I remember sending that accident report to our instructors like, never, ever. This should not be a place for an instructor. Now, if you don't know about that incident, what happened was you had a flight instructor with a student pilot. They were doing a night flight, cross-country flight, and the instructor, who really is the pilot in command, was distracted the whole time. Was in Snapchat before the airplane took off, was on Snapchat while they were flying, and more egregious were the content and the things that he was posting on Snapchat, basically talking down on the student. Now guys, if you followed Mike from the beginning, you know this channel that you're watching right now started with me telling you about my frustration with my flight training and complaining about what happened with the school and particularly with the instructor. Now, if you recall in some of those early videos, I spoke about one particular instructor that they were billing time for themselves, but more so, they had no business being an instructor. Unfortunately, the system we have right now, and I'm speaking out of experience because again, I run a flight school. Okay, you can get your pilot's license with us at lookupflightschool.com. At our school, and just about any other school around the country, the flow is this. You come in as a student, you get to your commercial rating, your CFI rating, and then you circle back and teach other people how to fly. That's generally how it works. And believe it or not, airlines and charter companies actually prefer when they hire an instructor, which on one hand, it makes all the sense in the world because as a CFI, generally speaking, you learn more as a pilot or with pilotage when you teach other people how to fly. But here's one fact. Not everybody is a good teacher. Matter of fact, I would go ahead and say half of the CFIs out there should have no business teaching anybody how to fly. And that's not a knock on anyone. That's just a human fact. We're not all teachers, right? I think of teaching like nurses. I feel like you have to have a special type of character and empathy to be a nurse. The same thing when you teach people. When you become a teacher, you have to have a special type of patience and empathy so that way your communication to your student is a lot better. You have no idea how much power and influence you have on the person that you're teaching. And you may have heard this saying that there are no bad students, only bad teachers. Guess what? The same thing with pilotage. If you learn from a bad instructor or you learn unsafe habits from an instructor, chances are you're going to carry those same habits into your own flying career. To me, that's one of the big downside of everybody becoming a flight instructor. The way the system is set up right now, I think that's one of the biggest flaws because I don't believe that everyone should be instructing. And in this case, this particular accident, that instructor should have never been in the position to teach anybody how to fly. The things he was saying to the students, the uncare attitude that this guy had, the fact that you're an instructor, you couldn't even stay on top of weather, which in this case, it was a situation where they flew into a thunderstorm. Old page in the book. You flew into a thunderstorm and the airplane got ripped apart. Unfortunately, this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened many, 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 many times, especially on a night flight. And so this instructor didn't stay on top of weather, but more so didn't even pay enough attention to what it was doing and helping the student out. He was too busy sharing his thoughts. on Snapchat. And unfortunately, they flew into a thunderstorms, both lives gone. Could have been totally avoided. And these are just two of the multiple accidents that's happened in the last few years that's tied to social media. And so I just went on this whole rant because again, this affects me as well. And I have to take a look in the mirror as to some of the safe and unsafe practices that I have and correct them. And I'm pleading with you that when you watch any of my videos, because I can only speak for myself, please don't always try to practice everything that you see in the videos. I may be doing something, and here's the thing, I get called out anyway, right? I get called out even in the comments, or I've had people, shoot me an email about something they saw in a video. And I do encourage that, not just for me, but if you're watching a lot of other content creators, if you see something unsafe, it's better to say something about it or let them know about it, because we're all students and we're all learning. But again, to circle all of it back, I think it is something amazing what's happened with the rise of social media and everybody getting exposed to flying and aviation. But also make sure that you're not being unsafe. And remember that those that you're watching likely has more experience than you, especially if you're just starting out or you're a student pilot. So don't just try to go practice the same things that they're doing. Okay, that is my spiel for today. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell on. I just got distracted because the light just came shining on my face. Guys, again, Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Again, my name is Mike, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.